The transport shuttle's engines whined as it descended through Verdantia's atmosphere, and Mira Castellan pressed her face against the viewport like an excited child. Below her, the moon's surface bloomed in impossible shades of emerald and turquoise, living testament to 2 decades of terraforming success. As a botanist, she'd studied the Verdantia project for years. Actually being here felt surreal. Approaching Agricultural Station 17, the pilot announced, "Welcome to the Garden of the Outer Colonies, Miss Castellan." Mira grinned, adjusting her auburn braid over her shoulder. At 28, this assignment represented everything she'd worked toward: a chance to study cross-species, pollination in a controlled alien ecosystem. The fact that she'd be working alongside researchers from 4 different species was just the cherry on top. The station sprawled across a shallow valley, its transparent domes reflecting the light of Verdantia's parent planet hanging huge and striped in the sky. As the shuttle settled onto the landing pad, Mira grabbed her single duffel. Daga's sheet always traveled light and practically bounced down the ramp. The air hit her first. Sweet, almost honey-like, with undertones of something spicy she couldn't quite identify. Not Earth, her brain noted, but not unpleasant, different. "You must be our new botanist." Mira turned toward the melodic voice and found herself staring at one of the most beautiful beings she'd ever seen. The alien stood perhaps 6 feet tall, skin the color of twilight, a deep violet that seemed to shimmer with embedded silver flecks. Large, opalescent eyes regarded her warmly, and delicate antennae rose from where eyebrows might be on a human, curling gracefully backward into silver-white hair that fell in waves past slender shoulders. "I'm Mira," she managed, extending her hand before remembering that handshakes weren't universal. "Mira Castellan." The alien's face brightened, and they reached out to clasp Mira's hand gently. Their skin was warm and surprisingly soft, with a texture like velvet. "Zendari. I coordinate the Botanical Research Division. We've been eagerly awaiting your arrival." "Zendari," Mira repeated, trying to match the musical lilt. "That's beautiful. What does it mean?" A flush of deeper purple spread across Zendari's cheeks at least. Mira assumed it was a blush. "It translates roughly to one who seeks growth." "My parents were both agricultural scientists. It's a perfect name for this place then," Myra said, shouldering her bag. "I can't wait to see the pollination gardens." "Your reports were fascinating." Zendari's antennae quivered with what seemed like pleasure. "I'll give you the full tour tomorrow. For now, let me show you to your quarters. You must be exhausted. How long was your journey?" 3 weeks in cryosleep, then another week conscious on the transport." Mira fell into step beside Zendari as they headed toward the main dome. "Though I spent most of that week reading everything I could about Verdantia. This moon is incredible." "We think so," Zendari agreed, their voice warm with pride. They led Mira through a series of corridors lined with living walls, sexual plants, growing in vertical gardens that served as both decoration and air filtration. "How much do you know about the other species working here?" "Some. I've worked with a few Zentari before. They love their data analysis. But I've never met anyone from your species." "What are your people called?" "Valshara. We're from the Andali system, about 40 light-years from here." Zendari's antennae drooped slightly. "Not many of us ventured this far out. I'm actually the only Valshara on the station." Something in their tone made Myra's heart squeeze. "Does that get lonely?" Zendari glanced at her, surprise evident in those opalescent eyes. "Sometimes, but the work is fulfilling, and my colleagues are kind." They stopped before a door marked with both Valshara script and English. "Your quarters. I hope you'll find them comfortable." The room was modest but pleasant, with a sleeping alcove, a small workspace, and Mira's favorite part, an entire wall that looked out onto one of the biodomes, where alien plants swayed in an artificial breeze. "This is perfect," she said sincerely. "Thank you, Zendari. I'm glad you approve." Zendari hesitated at the doorway. "The evening meal is served in the communal dining area in about an hour. Would you like me to escort you, or would you prefer to rest?" Mira considered. She was tired, but the thought of eating alone in her quarters on her first night seemed depressing. "I'd love company if you don't mind." The way Zendari's antennae perked up told Mira she'd made the right choice. Wonderful. I'll return for you shortly. An hour later, Myra had unpacked her meager belongings and changed into a clean tunic and comfortable pants. When Zendari arrived, they'd also changed into flowing robes of deep blue that complemented their violet skin beautifully. The dining area was surprisingly cozy, with tables scattered throughout a space that managed to feel both spacious and intimate. Various species clustered in small groups, the mix of languages creating a pleasant background hum. The food synthesizers are programmed with Earth-compatible options, Zendari explained, guiding Myra to a dispensing station. Though I'd recommend trying the Verdantia saladites made from actual locally grown vegetables. Mira loaded her tray with what looked like a grain bowl, the recommended salad, and something that might have been fruit. Zendari selected items that glowed faintly in bioluminescent blues and greens. They found a table near a window overlooking the main gardens. As they ate, Zendari peppered Myra with questions about Earth botany, their enthusiasm infectious. Mira found herself laughing more than she had in weeks, charmed by Zendaria's genuine curiosity and the way their antennae danced when they were excited. The flowering cycles here must be so different from your home, Zendari mused, delicately consuming what looked like a spiral-shaped vegetable. Earth has such dramatic seasonal variations. It's what I'm most excited to study, Mira agreed. The way you've managed to synchronize pollination across species that evolve light years apart is remarkable. Zendaria's eyes practically glowed. Wait until you see the night bloomers. There's this one species, we call them lunar lila, that only opens under the light of the parent planet. The scent is intoxicating. I can't wait. Myra took a bite of her salad and was pleasantly surprised by the crisp, slightly sweet flavor. This is delicious. What kind of pollination system do these use? Insect analog, primarily. Though we've had interesting results with some of the avian species we've introduced. Zendari paused, tilting their head. Speaking of reproduction, I've been curious about something. Human biology is so different from ours. Mira raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the sudden shift. During my research on Earth species, I encountered a fascinating note about certain predatory behaviors in your animal kingdom. Female praying mantises, consuming their mates, for instance. Zendari Santani curled forward, a sign of intense focus. Do humans have any similar behaviors in their mating rituals? Mira nearly choked on her water. I what? Forgive me if the question is too personal, Zendari said quickly, their skin flushing darker. I'm simply curious about biological imperatives across species. I know humans are quite different from insects, but I wondered if there were any analogous behaviors. A mischievous impulse seized Myra. Maybe it was the long journey, or the pleasant warmth of Zendari's company, or just the absurdity of the question. But she found herself leaning forward with a conspiratorial grin. Well, she said, lowering her voice, there is one thing. Human males do actually eat their females. Zendari's antennae shot straight up, their eyes widening to an almost comical degree. They excuse me? Oh yes, Mira continued, fighting to keep a straight face. It's considered quite important in human courtship. Very intimate. But Zendari seemed to struggle for words, their skin cycling through several shades of purple. They don't actually consume, I mean, humans aren't cannibalistic. No, Mira said, taking pity on them. It's not literal. It's a euphemism. Some humans use their mouths to provide pleasure to their partners, orally stimulating their genitals. The silence that followed was profound. Zendari sat perfectly still, their skin now a deep indigo that Mira was certain indicated either embarrassment or shock. Possibly both. I apologize, Mira said, suddenly worried she'd overstepped. That was probably too much information. No, Zendari interrupted, their voice slightly strangled. No, I asked. I simply that's. They took a visible breath, their antennae slowly relaxing. That's actually quite fascinating from a biological standpoint. The erogenous zones in that region would certainly make such stimulation pleasurable. I just never considered mouths seem so versatile, Mira suggested, relieved that Zendari seemed more intrigued than offended. I was going to say unexpected, but versatile works. A small smile played at Zindari's lips. Is this a common practice among humans? It's very common, Mira confirmed. Deciding in for a penny, in for a pound. It's considered an important part of intimacy for many couples, both giving and receiving. Zindari nodded slowly, their scientific mind clearly processing this new information. And it's pleasurable for both parties? When done right, absolutely. Remarkable. Zindari's antennae quivered, and they seemed to study Myra with new interest. Human physiology is far more complex than I realized. Nerve density alone would require they stopped abruptly, skin flushing again. I apologize. I'm approaching this too clinically. You're a scientist, Myra said gently. It's natural to be curious. Perhaps, Zindari agreed, their opalescent eyes meeting Mira's. Though I must admit my curiosity isn't entirely academic. The admission hung in the air between them, charged with possibility. Mira felt her own cheeks warm, suddenly aware of how close they were sitting, how Zendaria's eyes seemed to hold entire galaxies in their depths. Is that so? She managed, her voice softer than intended. Zendari leaned back slightly, but their gaze never wavered. Would you think it inappropriate if I said I'd like to learn more about human intimacy? And perhaps share some Velshara customs in return? Mira's heart did an odd little flip in her chest. I think, she said carefully, that cultural exchange is an important part of interspecies cooperation. A smile, genuine and warm, spread across Zindari's face, spoken like a true scientist. When do you want to start this exchange? Mira asked, surprised by her own boldness. My quarters have a garden balcony, Zindari said. The view of the parent planet is spectacular at night. Perhaps you'd like to see it, after you've had time to rest, of course. Mira thought about being sensible, about taking things slow, about professional boundaries. Then she looked at Zendari's hopeful expression and threw caution to the stars. How about tonight? She suggested. I'm not really tired anymore. Zendaria's antennae danced with obvious delight. Tonight would be perfect. The walk to Zendaria's quarters felt both endless and far too short. Myra's heart hammered against her ribs as they navigated the softly lit corridors, passing the occasional late-night researcher who nodded politely. She couldn't quite believe what she was doing. It was her first night on the station, and here she was, following a beautiful alien to their private quarters for what could only be described as a very personal cultural exchange. Nervous? Zindari asked softly, their antennae tilting toward her with evident concern. A little, Mira admitted. Good nervous, though. Is that strange? Not at all. Zendari's hand brushed against hers, the velvet soft touch sending pleasant tingles up her arm. I find myself equally anticipatory. They stopped before a door marked with intricate Velshara symbols that seemed to shimmer in the low light. Zindari pressed their palm to the sensor. The door slid open to reveal quarters significantly larger than Mira's temporary accommodation. The main living space was decorated with living plants, of course, suspended in crystalline containers that caught and refracted the ambient light. But what truly stole Mira's breath was the far wall, which wasn't a wall at all, but a transparent barrier opening onto a garden balcony. Beyond that, Verdantia's parent planet dominated the sky, its bands of ochre and cream glowing softly in the darkness. Myra breathed, moving toward the view as if drawn by gravity. Zindari, this is stunning. I'm glad you approve. Dari moved to a small panel on the wall. Soft music began to place, something with wind chimes and what might have been a string instrument. Would you like to go outside? The temperature is quite pleasant tonight. The balcony was intimate, perhaps 10 feet across, filled with flowering plants that released sweet perfume into the air. Mira leaned against the railing, tilting her head back to take in the enormous planet above. On Earth we can see our moon, she said quietly, but it's so small compared to this. I can't imagine growing up with something so vast in the sky every night. Zindari joined her at the railing, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. For us, it's comforting. The parent planet, we call it, Andara, is like a guardian watching over us. Many Velshara feel lost when they travel away from it. Is that how you feel? Lost? Sometimes Zindari's antennae drooped slightly. But tonight I feel rather found. Mira turned to face them, her breath catching at the vulnerability in those opalescent eyes. Zindari, I should confess something, Zindari interrupted gently. When I requested a human botanist for this station, I did so partly because of the work, but also because I wanted to meet one of your kind. I've been fascinated by humans since first contact. Your resilience, your curiosity, your capacity for connection across impossible distances. They paused, skin flushing that darker purple again. I read your application 7 times before approving it, not because I doubted your qualifications, but because I kept trying to imagine what you might be like in person. Mira's heart swelled with something warm and golden. And do I match your imagination? You exceed it, Zendari said simply. When you smiled at me on the landing pad, I felt something I haven't felt in years. Like maybe I wasn't so alone after all. The honesty of it nearly undid Mira. She reached up, hesitating only briefly before gently touching one of Zindari's antennae. Is this okay? Zindari's eyes fluttered closed, and a small sound, almost like a sigh, escaped them. Very much okay. Our antennae are quite sensitive. Like this? Myra asked, running her finger along the delicate appendage with feather-light pressure. Exactly like that, Zendari breathed, their skin shimmering with what Myra was beginning to recognize as pleasure. Myra, I should explain among my people, touching another's antennae is considered very intimate. It's often the first physical contact between potential mates. Mira froze. Should I stop? Please don't. Zendari's eyes opened, meeting hers with an intensity that made her knees weak. Unless you want to. Instead of answering, Mira reached up with her other hand, gently cradling both antennae. Made that sighing sound again, swaying slightly toward her. Tell me about your people, Myra said softly, continuing the gentle stroking, about Velshara intimacy.
Older.
Zindari struggled to focus, clearly affected by her touch. We don't have the same reproductive biology as humans. We're hermaphroditic, capable of both giving and receiving genetic material. Intimacy for us is about neural connection, sharing thoughts and feelings through our antennae. Is that what this is? Mira asked, fascinated. Are you sharing thoughts with me? I'm trying not to, Zendari admitted with a shaky laugh. It requires conscious effort. And right now, my thoughts are rather scattered. You're very distracting. Mira grinned. Good distracting or bad distracting? Wonderful distracting. Zendaria's hands came up to rest on Mira's waist, tentative and gentle. Is this acceptable? I know humans have different comfort zones regarding touch. This is very acceptable, Mira assured them, acutely aware of the warmth of those hands through her thin tunic. Actually, I've been wanting to ask that thing I mentioned at dinner about oral pleasure. Do Velshara have anything similar? Zendari's antennae quivered under her touch. We have our own forms of physical pleasure, though they're quite different from human methods. The nerve clusters at the base of our antenna, for instance, are extraordinarily sensitive, and there are places along our spine. They broke off, skin darkening. I'm being too forward. You're being honest, Myra corrected. Like it. Aid. It's refreshing after all the posturing and games people play back home. Your species plays games with intimacy. Zendari tilted their head, genuinely curious despite the charged atmosphere. Why would you hide your interest in someone? Fear of rejection, mostly. Or looking too eager to desperate. We have all these unwritten rules about who should make the first move, how long to wait before expressing interest. Mira shook her head. It's exhausting, honestly. That sounds unnecessarily complicated. Zendaria's thumbs traced small circles on her waist, the gesture unconscious but incredibly distracting. Among my people, if you're interested in someone, you simply tell them. Life is too short for pretense. I'm starting to see the appeal of that philosophy, Mira murmured, letting her hands slide from Zendaria's antennae to cup their face. Their skin was warm and impossibly soft, and she could feel a gentle vibration beneath the surface, like a purr. Zendari, I should tell you I'm very interested in you. Not just scientifically, personally, romantically, all of it. Zendari's eyes went wide, then soft with something that looked remarkably like wonder. Truly? Even though we've only just met? Sometimes you just know, Myra said. My grandmother used to say that connection isn't about time, it's about recognition. Like meeting someone and thinking, oh, there you are. I've been looking for you. Your grandmother sounds wise. Zendaria's hands tightened slightly on her waist, drawing her incrementally closer. I felt that way when I saw your application. And then today, when you stepped off that shuttle with stars in your eyes and enthusiasm in every gesture, I thought this one is special. Myra's breath hitched. Kiss me? Zendari hesitated. I don't know how humans kiss. Will you show me? In response, Mira leaned in slowly, giving Zendari plenty of time to pull back if they wanted. But they didn't. Instead, they met her halfway, their lips soft and warm against hers. The kiss was gentle at first, exploratory. Zendari's lips were fuller than a human's, softer, and there was that pleasant vibration again, resonating through the contact. Mira made a small sound of pleasure, and Zendari responded by pulling her closer, their antennae curling forward to brush against her temples. Suddenly, Mira felt a flutter of emotion that wasn't quite her own. Wonder, desire, joy, a profound sense of rightness. She pulled back slightly, eyes wide. Did I just feel what you're feeling? Zendari's expression was tender, their antennae still gently touching her skin. Yes, I'm sorry, I should have warned you. When we're emotionally heightened, we sometimes can't contain the neural feedback. Did it frighten you? No, Mira said honestly. It was beautiful. Can you feel what I'm feeling too? Only faintly. Your human neural pathways aren't designed for this kind of connection. But yes, Psi can sense your emotions. Warmth. Curiosity. Zendari's eyes sparkled. Attraction. Definitely attraction, Mira confirmed, pulling them in for another kiss. This time they both relaxed into it. Finding a rhythm that worked for both their physiologies. Myra's hands explored Zendari's shoulders, their back, marveling at the lean strength hidden beneath the flowing robes. Zendari's fingers tangled in her braid, gently pulling it loose so her auburn hair tumbled free. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Zendari rested their forehead against Myra's. This is happening rather quickly, they observed, though they made no move to step away. Do you want to slow down? Mira asked, trying to ignore the disappointed pang in her chest at the thought. Not particularly. Zendari laughed softly. But I want to do this properly. Court you, as I believe humans say. Learn everything about you. Not just your body, though. I confess I'm increasingly interested in that aspect as well.
Oh.
Mira grinned against their shoulder. What did you have in mind? Well, there's a midnight tour of the biodomes I've been planning, Zendari said. The lunar lilies I mentioned earlier, they should be blooming tonight. And I'd very much like to hold your hand while we walk through the gardens and talk about everything and nothing. That sounds perfect, Mira said, meaning it completely. They walked through the biodomes hand in hand, and Mira thought she'd never experienced anything more romantic. The lunar lilies were spectacular, massive flowers that glowed with soft bioluminescence, their petals unfurling in the light of the parent planet. Zendari explained their pollination cycle with infectious enthusiasm, occasionally pausing to point out other specimens. This one, they said, stopping before a climbing vine covered in tiny star-shaped flowers, is from my home world. I brought seeds with me when I came to Verdantia. It reminds me of the garden where I grew up. Myra studied the delicate blooms. Tell me about your family. Do you miss them? Zendaria's antennae drooped slightly. Every day. But we communicate regularly through quantum relay. My parents are proud of my work here, though my sister Vesa thinks I'm mad for living so far from home. You have a sister? Mira squeezed their hand gently. Yes. She's younger by 3. Solar cycles, very protective, very opinionated. Zendari smiled fondly. She'll probably have many questions when I tell her about you. The casual assumption that Mira would be important enough to mention to family made her heart soar. What will you tell her? That I've met someone remarkable. Someone who makes me feel less alone in this vast universe. Zendari turned to face her, fully backlit by the glowing flowers. Someone I very much hope to keep in my life. Mira reached up to touch Zindari's face again, that wonderful vibration purring beneath her fingertips. I'm not going anywhere. My contract is for 18 months, and something tells me I'm going to extend it. Truly? Hope blossomed across Zindaria's features. Truly, Mira confirmed. I came here looking for interesting plant life. I didn't expect to find someone who makes my heart race and my mind expand in equal measure. Zindari pulled her close, their antennae wrapping gently around her temples again. This time Mira was ready for the rush of shared emotion affection, desire, and underneath it all, the tentative, fragile beginning of something deeper. Stay with me tonight, Zindari murmured against her hair. Not for I mean. I would very much like to simply hold you. Wake up with you. Talk until dawn if you'd like. Mira thought about propriety, about taking things slow, about all those earth rules she'd mentioned. Then she thought about Zindari's straightforward honesty and decided she preferred their way. I'd love to, she said simply. They returned to Zindari's quarters as the station's artificial night cycle deepened. Zindari lent Myra soft sleeping clothes. They settled together on the sleeping platform, wider and lower than a human bed. Filled with something that conformed to their bodies like memory foam? Tell me about Earth, Zindari requested, curling against Mira's side. What do you miss most? Rain, Myra said after a moment's thought. Real rain, not the irrigation systems here. The smell of it on hot pavement. Thunderstorms that shake the windows. She paused. In my grandmother's garden. She's the one who taught me to love plants. Every Sunday, we'd work in her garden together. Now she'd tell me stories about her grandmother and her grandmother before that. This whole lineage of women who grew things. Zindaria's fingers traced lazy patterns on her arm. She sounds wonderful. She is. She's 93 now, still tending her roses. Mira smiled in the darkness. I sent her a message before I left Earth. Told her I was going to study alien plants on a terraformed moon. You know what she said? What good? Maybe you'll find something or someone that makes you bloom too. Mira laughed softly. I thought she was just being poetic. But maybe she was right. Zindari pressed a kiss to her temple. Your grandmother is definitely wise. They talked for hours, sharing stories and dreams and fears. Zindari spoke about the pressure they felt to succeed so far from home. The weight of representing their entire species on the station. Myra confessed her fear that she wasn't good enough, that she'd somehow prove herself unworthy of this opportunity. You're more than good enough, Zindari said firmly. Your work on Earth native pollination systems is brilliant. Why else would I have fought so hard to get you assigned here? You fought for me? Of course. The station director wanted someone with more experience, but I insisted that your innovative approaches were exactly what we needed. Zindari's antennae curled with pleasure. I may have also mentioned that your personnel. File noted you were adaptable and worked well with diverse teams. I'm going to have to thank Director Hamish for taking a chance on me. Can thank him tomorrow? Zindari murmured, their voice growing drowsy. For now, just let me hold you. Mira snuggled closer, breathing in Zindari's scents, something like ozone and growing things, alien, but pleasant. Outside the window, the parent planet's glow painted everything in soft ochre light. Zindari, she whispered, thank you. For dinner, for the gardens, for this, all of it. She felt, rather than saw Zindari's smile. Thank you for not running away when I asked about humans eating their mates. Myra laughed, the sound muffled against Zindari's shoulder. Best misunderstanding ever, agreed, Zindari said, their antennae giving her temples one last gentle caress before settling. Sleep well, Mira, Castellan. Dream of gardens. Dream of starlight, Mira replied, the blessing slipping out before she could think about it. Zindari, S. Surprised intake of breath told her she'd said something significant. That's how did you know that's a traditional Valshara farewell? Lucky guess? Mira offered. Or perhaps we're more connected than either of us realized. Zindari suggested softly, as Mira drifted towards sleep. Wrapped in Zindari's arms beneath the light of an alien planet, she thought that maybe, just maybe she'd found exactly what she'd been searching for all along. Not just interesting plants or professional success, but someone who saw her, understood her, and wanted to grow alongside her. Tomorrow would bring questions and complications. She had no illusions about that. But tonight she had this warmth and wonder and the beginning of something beautiful. It was more than enough.